sunt Caterina Pruteanu și asculți Pentru mai bine, un podcast pentru conversații cu tâlc, alături de oameni care îndrăznesc să schimbe lumea. Podcastul Pentru mai bine este realizat în cadrul proiectului Together for Forests și este finanțat de Oak Foundation. Noua lege rezultată în urma acestei campanii combate schimbările climatice și pierderea biodiversității, obligând companiile să garanteze că produsele vândute în Uniunea Europeană nu au provocat defrișări sau degradarea pădurilor. Georg este un ghid de sălbăticie, specializat în recunoașterea semnelor din natură și a urmelor animalelor sălbatice, în metodologia Cyber Tracker. Acest proces intensiv și extrem de educativ este recunoscut la nivel mondial ca fiind cel mai complex instrument pentru a învăța despre viața sălbatică și peisajele locale, dezvoltând în același timp abilitățile de trekking. De origine german și sud-african, el a petrecut peste 4 ani în Măgura Zimbrilor și a urmărit modul de viață al acestor animale magnifice, contribuind la designul experiențelor de safari pe urmele zimbrilor, primele de acest gen din Europa. Despre asta, dar și despre cum putem intra în miezul pădurilor, în discuția care urmează.
Georg, you spent over 4 years in the Măgura Zimbrilor, bison's hillock, like you told me, and observed the way of life of these animals. Why was it important for Wild Fund to reintroduce the bison to our niche?
For a number of reasons. I think, first of all, the bison almost went extinct in the last century. So we almost lost one of the iconic, large, key European species that we have native in the landscape. That is very important for the healthy ecosystem. But it also was very important to prove on a European level that we can have large animals in an area close to a community, relatively close, and coexist. I mean, there are bears, there are lynx, there are wolves, there are a lot of animals in these landscapes and surroundings of Armeniș that locals have a very strong relationship to, and they have adapted in a way and live with these that we don't have in other European countries. So it is a very, it is like a shining light, an example of it is possible to live with bison, and we have, I think, now over 145, 150 plus bison that we know of in the area, wild, without fences, so it's a huge success. That's the nature side, but the social side is also just as important, if not even more important, to make this a success in the long term. And this is what We Wilder is all about, is making that long-term success possible through engaging the local community, creating job opportunities, inspiring new entrepreneurs to do new job or businesses around a nature positive approach. So benefiting nature and supporting rewilding, but also making money.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, it's very important.
Spot. But can you tell me more precisely in what way does the bison contribute to the native ecosystem?
Sure. So basically, the bison is a herbivore. That means he eats a lot of vegetation, grass, but also leaves, and in the winter bark of a tree if there's no leaves in the winter. So that's one primary and obvious contribution, that in Europe forest grows back very quickly if you don't do anything. If you think about your garden and you leave it, it's going to grow very shrubby, and eventually trees will come in there, and eventually it's going to become a forest. So what the bison does is it goes into these open and semi-open areas around forest edges, and it feeds on the juicy, nice trees that it likes. Why not? Of course. And that is an impact from a herbivore on the forest, and it kind of balances it out. And this balance creates biodiversity. And so you can think about different plants growing there, because the system is a little bit more complex, different micro sites and habitats where plants can grow. And that has an effect on the insects able to live there, because they have dependency on the plants. It has an impact on the birds in the spring when the insects are there or not, feeding it to their nestlings. And even the hair of the bison, we can find it after the winter, when you walk through the forest here, the bison often rubs against the tree, and you can see that the fur is very, very thick, very dense, and it's great for insulation. And our rangers, and I've also seen it once before. You see, for example, I saw a bluetit, a small pizzigoi, take this material. I'm sure other birds do that as well because it's great insulation for nest. So that's a small little contribution, but they have a big contribution, especially in numbers.
But the bisons were here already, and they
Yes. So basically, throughout most of Europe, the bison was living after the ice age, after the ice retreated, and humans caused their extinction almost completely in the last century, with only 54 individuals left in zoos and reserves. And genetic studies later on showed that those 54 individuals are descendant of only 12 bison. So basically all the European bison that we have that have a pedigree status, so you know where they come from, and they can be used for these rewilding projects that we have here, come from 12 individuals, and that's so a lot of animals have been driven to extinction from individuals. But thinking about other countries, not just Romania, because Romania is an incredible example for still having so many wild animals like bears and wolves and lynx. In Germany, for example, we hardly have any bears, just occasionally, and it creates a lot of drama.
This is quite a talk in Romania nowadays, the bear.
I'm sure. And especially also in Italy, after the incident in Italy in the Alps. So I think what the benefit is here is showing the community that it's possible to live with the bison, because the bison is an integral part for biodiversity. And remember that a more biodiverse ecosystem that is self-sustaining, that is strong, a healthy ecosystem, is more resilient in the future for what happens next. Climate change, we don't know what's going to happen exactly. No one can predict it, but we can say that a more healthy ecosystem is going to be able to do better than a ecosystem that has been degraded.
Yeah.
So the bison helps with that. Also something like the beaver or so on. They assist.
But here, you've mentioned the community.
Yes.
What was the process of rewilding this part of Romania? I mean, you've consulted the people living here, or?
I mean, there are a lot of people involved in the rewilding progress of this place to make it a success. So one aspect is the bison, of course, that this is successful. But the other successful progress that needs to happen is integrating the bison work with the community work, and that means also ecotourism, which allows other people to come here and experience that, because us Europeans, we don't know what it means. What is the spirit of a wild Europe? What does wild Europe mean? Here you can get a taste with these animals that we are around. What does it feel like to have fear of being
even more? It's not only about rewilder, it's we wilder.
Yes,
it's the focus on the whole community.
That's it. Yeah. So We Wilder, the social enterprise We Wilder, which we founded a couple of years ago, and are in this really magnificent campus that has really created opportunity for making sure that we can deliver on the long-term process of making this a success in the community and getting as many locals involved as possible. And I think it has been successful so far, and this is also, it's not the beginning because we've been doing this since 2014, 2015 as a team, but it's not going to end next year. So there's still a long way to go. Yeah.
In this campus, you also provide this expertise that you have on cyber tracking. Can you tell me more? What is precisely cyber tracking, and how does it help the community, the people that just want to discover things about the wild side of the nature, but also why this kind of approach is really important for the journalists?
Yeah, okay, so Cyber Tracker is an organization primarily from South Africa. And I think the easiest answer to the confusing name is the cyber aspect of the word refers to an application that you can collect data with about tracks or in wildlife. And if you're collecting data, it's a very simple way to collect data. It's a free application. You need to be able to verify that this data is valid. So if you want to do scientific studies, ideally you have somebody who's collecting the data, for example, of a track of a fox. You want him to be sure that that is a track of a fox. So he needs to have a certain standard of tracking. And that is the evaluation process of Cybertracker, where it's an evaluation standard throughout the world. It's the gold standard on tracking internationally. In North America and Africa, especially, basically an ecotourism industry is being supported as a pillar with this because it employs trackers to go look for the animals that the tourists want to see in the morning and pay a lot of money for to stay in these lodges. And it's very exciting for me personally because in Europe we are very much in the beginning of this, of what it means to integrate tracking into rewilding. But I know that it plays a big role because it's a way of us reconnecting to nature. Also journalists or anybody who's got work remotely to do with this. It's a very holistic way in going to nature. You don't have to become a botanist. You don't have to become an ornithologist. You don't have to become an expert on fish or anything like this. You're looking at everything. And so it's a standard, and we are trying to get the standard established here as well. It's a long process, but in the process of this, we are engaging with locals, we are engaging with ourselves. It's great for personal development as well, actually. But more importantly, it's a great way of yourself learning yourself how to gain more understanding about nature. And this is very relevant for journalists like you who are working on this topic, to also have an understanding of the nature in Romania that is not just about a catalogue of species or habitats, or one being an expert in one field, but the big picture. And we will be doing this tomorrow and have some experience with that, and I'm really looking forward to it because I know it's very powerful and it's a lot of fun actually as well.
But for those who are watching us but don't have the possibility to come with us on the journey we will do tomorrow, how does it look at a trip like the one you organize on cyber tracking?
So tracking comes in different ways. So for example, what we will be doing tomorrow is we will be identifying tracks and reaching conclusions. And we will be looking into storytelling aspects of this, because trackers, the best way to go about tracking and to be sure that this track is indeed a fox is if you have somebody else who's maybe got a different argument of why this is not a fox, and you need to reach a conclusion. So you basically have to have a dialogue, and having a dialogue needs to be honest if you want to really reach the conclusion and really reach the reality of what actually is this. So you need to get as much information as possible, and that means following the animal maybe, where it went, figuring out behavior, context, and then you have enough evidence to make a decision, this was a fox.
Based on facts.
Based on facts. And this is relevant for journalism as well, because you can, if you have too little information, you will very quickly lead into the wrong direction, what your story goes in.
And launch fake news,
Fake news, misinterpretation.
Yeah.
So it's an exercise in nature, and why not? It's fun being in nature. Yeah.
Within the European Union, it is said that Romania has the largest area of primary forests. According to expert estimates, actually up to two-thirds of the primary forests of Europe are located in Romania. I guess this can be both an advantage and a cause of concern, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What's your thoughts on this?
I think Romania is really lucky for this, for nature. I love Romania and Romanian nature and this fact. And I get very sad when I see forests cut down, like it is happening even in national parks sometimes, like we heard.
And now even more, even though we talk a lot about the climate crisis.
Yeah.
Especially because of the war perspective and this deforestation for energy and so on.
Yeah, but my thoughts on this is that I think it's a responsibility as well that's probably not easy for Romania because you have it and you need to protect it.
Progress, but with the responsibility.
Yes. But also if we're talking about long-term again, what these primary forests also need somewhere are these more or less complete ecosystems. So also, even in Romania, there's some species missing, for example, of nature dynamics that are not just stationary one virgin forest that's going to stay like that forever, but nature changes. It changes to climate, it changes to evolution ultimately. And for this to happen and to maintain sort of a level of being able to adapt, again, you need a healthy ecosystem. So the bison, for example, support in this role in a way, but not just the bison. So there's also this rewilding aspect.
We need to learn that we are part of this ecosystems. Exactly. We are not somewhere outside just observing the way.
Yeah, so great responsibility, but also a great opportunity, I think, the virgin forests in Romania. And I know it's not easy because there's a lot of interest on them from maybe more short-term interests that are very harmful, actually. And it's once you cut down a virgin forest, it's going to take a long time to grow back to what it is, because these are very ancient trees and communities that have lived together for a very long time. So once you kill that, basically you've destroyed that community of organisms that has been going back very long time. So it's going to take a very long time to recreate that again. And that's basically a responsibility that you're handing over to the next generations. So some generations today that are working on a very short-term gain to do this illegally, perhaps, are basically the generations further down are paying the price, which is not fair, in my opinion.
Yeah, I guess in many others' opinions, but I think we just need to figure out how we can find a way to deliver this message in order to be relevant for the people living in countries like Romania, because we had 3 indigenous people from Guatemala coming to Iași in Bucharest, talking about their problems with the forests. And of course, palm oil and all this complex agroecological system. But they also founded a solution relating the forest with the sacred public speech, because it is also the nature and the sacred communities are very connected.
Linked, yeah. That's actually a really interesting point. I recently spoke to a colleague of mine, also from Cybertrekker, from Africa. And if you think about Africa, it has these big animals. Every child has opened a book with a lion and an elephant in there, and it sparks your imagination. And those animals, those big animals, are kind of like the spirit of Africa, the rhinoceros. And I mean, there are problems facing the rhinoceros, so if the rhinoceros would go extinct, you're losing that part of the spirit of Africa. And if you look at Europe, we've lost many of these species already, and we are losing more at the moment because of all of our short-term gains collectively. So we've lost a lot of our European wilderness spirit. What does it mean? And we don't know that. So I think this is also very exciting in a way. It's very nice to rediscover this for us Europeans. It doesn't matter if you're from Romania or from Germany or from Spain, we're Europeans. And we are together discovering this European wilderness spirit in a way, because we've lost these animals. And so we have to stop losing these animals and restore it and create opportunities for these animals to come back, basically, those that are still there.
Also for the people, because as you mentioned, the local community was very important for you when you developed all this campus and the principles of We Wilder. So I'm curious if and how local people engage in all this experience that you offer here. I mean, all these cyber trekking trips and fun dining experience. Yes. Okay, they are really nice for the tourists, for the people that are searching for this connection with nature, but how is it for the people living here?
Without the locals, we would not be able to do it. They are doing the experiences. They are providing us with the food that we are eating. The fine dining is made by locals with local produce, and we spoke about it today. I mean, the food, we were speaking about the food that tastes so good. That happens if you have good ingredients and real ingredients, real food. So basically that is what the locals are doing. They are providing us this opportunity. Without them, we would not be able to do it. They are the integral part of all of these experiences and activities that we do. And that's why it's so important for us to honestly build relationships with locals, and to honestly be interested in the long-term development of this. And
it's I'm interested circular,
in this. Yes, I'm interested in this things. Personally, because I'm from Germany and I'm not from Romania, so that doesn't mean I'm going to stay here forever. But I'm very interested in here as well, because I know that the local community here, with the context, can provide a very strong argument and example on how to do this in Europe. So basically scale it up in different areas in Europe. And so far it has been proven. I mean, big projects don't come with big problems, always come with big problems, and we've managed to do this now over many of years together with all of the other colleagues that we're working with. And that's why I'm very confident that there can be more done in the future. And it's the focus is the locals. Without the locals, it's not long term.
Yeah, but I imagine it's often it's a very hard process of negotiating the way of doing.
Yes, sure, yeah. But there's progress. Yeah. That's the benefit of doing it long term. You can be patient.
Yeah, and that's part of the resilient perspective of doing things. And I guess Wilder and all of you are doing a great job.
Yeah.
Thank you, Georg, for sharing all these, like you said, problems and solutions that you came up upon doing this amazing project. Looking forward to discover the cyber trekking trip tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to showing you guys tomorrow as well. And I really think that Romanians should be really proud of what they have, and not take the responsibility lightly of having all of these beautiful animals, but also virgin forests, and I think it's worth fighting for it.
For sure. Thank you.
Sper că această conversație te-a ajutat să regândești modul în care pădurile te pot conecta cu cei din jurul tău și cu lumea întreagă. Invitația pe care o lansăm către tine este de a găsi propria ta cale prin care să contribui la o lume mai bună, rezilientă și pașnică.